right, guys, we're talking UFC 321. Tom Aspinall makes a return to the octagon. It's been quite some time. It's been over a year since we've seen him in there, and that's due to the fact he was holding out for that Jon Jones bout that didn't come to fruition. Now, I'll tell you guys real quick, I think that is still a fight that we very likely could see. Of course, it would be on the UFC White House card, and I think what better bout, right? I've heard a lot of people talking about potential main events for that card. Let's be very clear. There is no better bout than the Tom Aspinall versus Jon Jones bout, okay? It's for the heavyweight championship of the world. It's USA versus England, okay? If you know a little bit about the history of the United States, I mean, what better matchup as far as country versus country? I've been hearing rumors, or people have kind of flirted with the ideas of Jon Jones coming back to fight Alex Pereira. We know those were false reports, but what sense does that really make? It makes zero sense. How would Tom Aspinall not be in the picture there? Now, the only other bout that makes a lot of sense to be a main event at that White House event would be Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. You get USA versus Ireland. You got to have the USA aspect going on there, and Conor McGregor is just the biggest name in the fight game. So that's the other fight that potentially could be that headliner. We know Dana White wants to do it big for that card. There's still a lot of moving pieces, and a lot is going to take place up until that event. And I wanted to mention all that because it ties in directly with this bout here. Aspinall is doing a lot more than just defending the heavyweight championship against Gane. Okay, he is setting himself up for potentially the biggest fight that we've ever seen. He cannot afford to take an L here. And of course, just as important as it is for Aspinall to continue to win leading up to that event, we need Jon Jones to actually commit and want to make a return. That's the big question mark there. We don't know for certain how he feels about the fight. He's played with us a lot over the past however long it's been. But, you know, my gut tells me that he's going to get a fire lit under him, and I could see him making a return. It seems that he's still active with the drug testing, so that won't be an issue. And, of course, unfortunately, he just lost his brother. I don't know if that's going to light a fire under him. I mean, there's a lot of question marks, but I think it could happen. And for all of you guys that are big believers in Aspinall, now, if you didn't know, now you know, and a lot of you already knew this. I mean, I think Aspinall is the greatest heavyweight talent that we've ever seen. I'm a big believer in him, even though he just missed a year of fighting, waiting for that Jones bout. He's 32 years old. He's so young for the heavyweight division. And if he is as good as we believe that he is, he's going to have plenty of time to cement his legacy as the greatest heavyweight champion of all time, as potentially, you know, one of the greatest fighters that we've ever seen, especially when you're talking about up in the upper weight classes. I'll give you my thoughts on how I think that this main event will play out here in a little bit. And I know maybe I'm looking too far down the line. And if we want to take a step back and look at what's right in front of us here, what makes this event even cooler is we have essentially a number one contenders bout in the heavyweight division between Alexander Volkov and Jailton Almeida. I believe the winner of that bout will be fighting next for the title in the meantime before we get to any White House event or anything like that. So if Aspinall defends, he should be facing off against the winner of that fight. And actually, he probably should be facing off against Volkov right now, because Volkov absolutely defeated Ciryl Gane, right? Ciryl Gane pulled off one of the worst robberies that we've ever seen in recent memory. As far as I'm concerned, I thought that was an atrocious decision. But the only good thing is that we get to see a new matchup for Aspinall, because we've already seen Aspinall run through Volkov. But you also have to note, Volkov looks to be a very new version of himself. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get up to his matchup against Almeida. But he's looked really good. If you guys are new to the channel, please smash that subscribe button. If everybody can hit the like button, go follow me on my social media. We're going to jump right into this thing. What we're going to do, of course, is start with the first fight, work our way up to the main event. I'm going to give you a prediction on every single bout. We'll do round predictions, method of victory, and I will dissect the betting odds. And the last thing, of course, if anybody wants to tail me on my official targets, which this event, I'm telling you guys, I really, really like this event. There's a couple of bouts where I just feel like I see it crystal clear. If you guys want to tail my official plays, shoot me an email or DM me on Instagram, and I'll give you further details there. I got a couple options in order to get my plays. And one way you can get them is if you sign up through a referral link to a very solid sports book. If anyone's looking for a new sports book, and you will get a 100% match as well as an entire month of my official targets. Okay, guys, so I'll leave you with that. I'm ready to dissect these bouts. Let's jump right into it. We'll kick this thing off in the lightweight division as we have Nasrat, Haqparast taking on Quillan, Salkilld. And Salkilld is really looking to move up the ladder quickly here, as he just got signed by the UFC about a year ago through DWCS after he had that unanimous decision victory over Gage Yong, which has aged decently, as Yong just got his hand raised inside the octagon for the first time. All in all, I will say that Salkilld strength of schedule has been pretty weak. Okay, you look at the 3 victories that he has under the UFC banner. Besides the Yong victory, we're talking Anshul Jubilee, who is without a doubt not a UFC caliber fighter, and we saw what he did to him. Props to him for going out there and finishing him up like he should have in the first round. But I mean, Jubilee just had his face and his skull sitting there on a platter, and I think that many men in this division could have went out there and replicated what Salkilld did. So, I mean, depending on how you want to look at that, that was an absolute layup. And then you take a look at his most recent bout against Yanal Ashmos, who is a fighter that I'm not that high on. Okay, the performance was kind of suspect. All right, yeah, he did hit 8 takedowns in the match, but it was off 23 attempts, and Ashmos was really making him work in there. He was getting back up to his feet. And if you guys remember, Ashmos essentially won the 3rd round. Okay, 2 judges gave him that round, and he was stubborn in that fight. And I don't think that Salkilld is going to be able to replicate the wrestling success that he had in that fight. If you want to look at it like success, I mean, it did help him win the fight. Okay, but I don't see him going out here and taking Nasrat down over and over. I think that Nasrat will stuff takedowns. He has solid footwork, and he'll make you pay as you try to be the aggressor on him. He's a very slick counter striker, as we just saw when he faced off against Esteban Ribovics, which a lot of people are going to say, well, he lost that fight. It went to a split decision. It played out very closely. I don't care if you thought that he lost the fight to Ribovics, which as I watched it live, I kind of leaned towards that being true. But just rewatching that entire fight, it was a high-level fight. It was extremely close. And the fighter that I just saw in there with Ribovics is a fighter that is fighting at a way higher level than a Yanal Ashmos. And I think that Nasrat will keep this fight standing, and this will be a fight that will play out somewhat closely on the feet, because I don't want to completely overlook what Salkilld brings to the table there. He's a solid striker. In fact, that's really his strength. It is his striking, right? He blasts heavy body kicks. He showcases some power in his hands, but in a striking affair, I think that Nasrat is going to be a little bit quicker and a little bit slicker than him in this bout. I do. And I know he's had some hiccups in the past, like the Bobby Green fight. That's one that you would have liked to have seen him got. But still, when you take a look at the losses, they're all against respectable talent, respectable names. Green, Hooker, Drew Dober. He lost his UFC debut. He was just 22 years old against Marcin Held, who was a high caliber grappler. And he was just a young kid, but you have to love the way that he bounced back after that. He went in there and pulled off a big upset victory over Mark Diakese. He shut him down, pushing him up against the cage, and you saw that he was fearless as Diakese tried to intimidate him leading up to that bout. And again, he was just a kid, and he's proved a lot throughout the years, and he is just 30 years old, all right? And he's been training over at TriStar. He's been getting in a lot of work with some of the most elite coaches in the game, like Faraz Sahabi and Rafael Cordero. Okay, this is a fighter that takes the game serious, and I expect to see him take big strides over the next couple of years. And although I am high on the talent of Salkilld, I don't want to completely overlook him. I think that Haqparast is the side that you kind of have to be on here. I think that it is, especially when you take a look at the odds. I got to see this line just recently unravel, and Haqparast opens up as a plus 130 underdog, and we see quick action start to come in on him as he's now right around a minus 105. I would like Haqparast anywhere as high as being a minus 125, 130. I think there should be a slight lean towards his way when you take a look at the level of competition that he's been in there with. All right. Don't put him under the magnifying glass too much for his last 2 victories that went to split. And if you felt like he should have lost to Gordon or lost to Ribovics, don't overlook a lot of the slick tactics that he brought into those fights, because he's going to bring him into this one. And this fight very well is going to play out closely. And we're going to see how Salkilld looks when he's in there against a fighter that is on another level. We're going to see if he's game and he could rise to the occasion. But we know that Haqparast has already proven to be in those types of matches with big names and solid talent. I'll say at that. I really think Ribovics is a stud. So the way he hung in that fight and was right there with him, that shows you where his striking is. Fighting out of the southpaw stance, he's going to blast those body kicks as well. This fight should play out very closely, but I'm going to say that Haqparast wins another split decision. Now, I will say Valter Walker is really starting to grow on me. I do have major questions about his overall fighting game, but as far as his personality goes, he's a funny dude. And this was a video that he just made after, unfortunately, his bout with Usman fell apart due to Usman testing high or showing signs of having high testosterone leading up to that fight. And if you guys remember, I did pick against Walker. That was a dog pick that I had. And I'll tell you what, if Usman would have slid through the cracks with those elevated testosterone levels, I think it was a very winnable fight for him, even more winnable. And the reason why I picked against him in that match was because although Walker has had some recent success, he comes into this fight on a 3-fight winning streak. I think that he's being a little overvalued in general. But when you understand that he's pulling off these first round heel hook submissions, which he definitely knows what he's doing, but you understand that two of them are against extremely low level fighters and two extremely low level grapplers at that. Okay, so he was able to exploit them with the move that is typically a lower percentage submission. Although when he's in there, as of recently, he's making it look like it's easy. But I don't know how much you could bank on him just going in there and pulling that off over and over. But most importantly, how is he going to look if he doesn't pull it off? Which, if you remember the Lucas Brzeski fight, okay, that was about where he took his first L. It was in his first UFC fight, and he looked atrocious. Okay, but you could run the tape back on his Alex Nicholson victory. That he got a victory in the 4th round, but the tape looks pretty disgusting when you run it back. Now, I will give him some credit, though, because you do understand that he was much younger when these fights were taking place. And if you look at his physique, this is what's kind of making me turn a corner on him. If you look at his physique, he definitely does look like he's taking the game more serious. But in those bouts, you saw the cardio, it's pretty nasty and in a bad way. I mean, I'm not crazy about the way he looks late. His striking looked extremely sloppy in the Nicholson fight and in the Brzeski fight. So, I mean, he's not a high-level striker, to say the least. He's developing. And I think that Usman could have potentially broke him late. Usman's a fighter. Everyone wants to make fun of Usman. People were saying, well, what did you think that it was Kamaru Usman? I would have loved to seen that bout take place. And just so I could have shown you, man, the dog would have came through there. Some of you guys are going to disagree, but I think that it was likely Usman could have pushed late. People are a little hard on him. I know he looks sloppy, and he is sloppy at times, but there's some things that he brings to the table. He's a big dude. He's a solid athlete. And if he could have got to the later rounds and stuff takedowns, I think he would have won that fight if he avoided like an early heel hook. To this bout here, I'll give you my thoughts here quickly. Sutherland is a fighter that I just had defeating Tafa, right? Justin Tafa. And it was due to the fact that Tafa is a complete slouch in so many aspects of the fight game. He's a high-level striker. He has good power. But, I mean, you put him on his back, and he's just a baked potato rolling around. And I thought that Sutherland could have done that. We've seen as of recently that he has started to develop some of those tactics. Not a lot, but enough that he could have exploited Tafa there. He'll look to get takedowns. Doesn't have great technique on his wrestling, but he's large, he's strong, kind of has like a world's strongest man type of ability to rip you down, get in on those hips. And I don't think he's going to be able to do that to Walker. And his striking it's pretty damn bad. I would say even a step behind Walker's. I think Walker can get the better of the striking. And I'm going to side with Walker here. And I'm actually going to say that Walker is going to pull off a leg lock. He's going to pull off a heel hook or something like that. I think that Sutherland is very stiff, and I think that I could see Walker pulling it off here. So this time I am backing Walker. I don't believe that this fight is going to fully prove to us that Walker is ready for the rest of the top 15 of the heavyweight division, because he's ranked in the top 15. There's some fighters in this division that I think will exploit him down the line if he doesn't show to continue to make rapid improvement. So, but I do like how his body's looking. He looks like he's taking the game a lot more serious than he was just a couple years ago, where he was carrying a lot of excess weight. Now we take a look at the line here. Valter opened up as a -360. This is another fight where we have just seen the line recently open, and I think that Walker should be a decent favorite. I'm not crazy about him up in the -300s. I would want him at the very least up in the upper -200s, but he should be the favorite here. But I wouldn't be chalking up that type of line. Sutherland, he could say he's game, but he's lacking a lot. Walker should be able to exploit him, but this line's a little too high for my liking. Hopefully we see that line continue to trend down if you want to back Walker. And there's a reason why it's trending down. Give me Walker to hit that first round heel hook. This featherweight matchup's going to be fire. Jose Delgado takes on Nathaniel Wood. This bout has a lot of similarities to a fight that we just talked about in Haqparast and Salkilld, where you have Delgado as this young fighter who recently came through DWCS and has been looking really good, similarly to Salkilld. And then you have Nathaniel Wood, who has been fighting in the UFC for some time and has had some ups and downs, but has proven to be a high-level fighter, similarly to Haqparast. Now, in this bout, not to say that Wood can't have his own success striking, because he's shown to be pretty polished there as well, but I think that the avenue to victory, at least the easiest path, is through his grappling, which we don't know how sharp Delgado is there just yet. In fact, his lone loss, which took place a couple years ago, was about where his takedown defense kind of cost him a little bit against Chris Makate. Now that fight took place back in 2023. He's had a couple years to sharpen things up, and he's been training at a high-level gym over there at the MMA lab. But he better have been putting in some real work with that aspect of his game, because Wood, he's been looking sharp there. Yeah, he did have the mishap against Naimov, which it was interesting because he had such a slow start, and it was him that was getting dominated in the grappling exchanges when, long term, that's been his strength. He's gone out there and shown that he really knows what he's doing. But for whatever reason, he had a really slow start. He was taken down a couple times. He was controlled for 6 minutes and 42 seconds in that bout. And if you guys remember, he finished very strongly in the third round, but it was far too late. Then since that loss, he wins 2 fights in a row. I thought the Morgan Charrier victory what was a decent one. He was out in front from the jump pretty much, and I thought that he looked like his head was on his shoulders for that fight. And I think he is a fighter that needs to have his head on his shoulders. I think he's a little bit of a mental case, and you got to wonder what version you're getting when he shows up. If you think back to his third fight in the UFC, I just want to highlight this one. If you guys remember, it was against John Dodson, and he came into that fight with a lot of hype. He was on a 3-fight winning streak since joining the UFC. A lot of people were hyping him up from Cage Warriors, and he got knocked out there by John Dodson. He ran into a strike, and that's something we have to talk about, okay? Not to put him under the magnifying glass too much for the KO loss. I mean, it happens if you fight a lot, but the threat that he's going to be facing here, and a fighter like Delgado, who is nasty with the strikes, okay? Nasty. All right, what he was doing over on the regional scene, he brought right into the UFC. The KO that he just had over Hyder, Emil, was nasty. The knee that he landed, he went in for his own takedown. It was easily stuffed by Emil, but then he immediately enters back in and just starts throwing these tornado type of strikes that he does, and they're just so dangerous. We saw what he did to Connor Matthews. He looked great on Contender Series against Ernie Juarez. I think that his striking is something to take very seriously. Okay, he's not the most technical fighter. I mean, it's decently technical, but he's not a technician. Okay, he just moves very fast in there, and he lands, and he has a killer instinct, and he's been landing 7.13 strikes per minute since fighting under the UFC banner. Okay, he is nasty. I think he's going to land some big strikes in this match. I think that the knockout is very likely. I do, and I'm going to side with that being how this fight plays out. I'm going to say Delgado gets a knockout sometime in the first half of this fight, or probably in the second round, but I'm going to say under 1.5 rounds. I'm going to call it. I'm going to say Delgado continues to wreak havoc in this division, and this would be, without a doubt, the biggest victory of his career. Wood, I'm not completely overlooking Wood. If Wood fights in a measured way and he fights very defensively and he avoids that, it is also likely that he can show that he's levels above with the grappling. He can get in on a single. He can get this fight down to the mat, and maybe we see him wear down Delgado, and then Delgado doesn't have that same power and pop on his strikes later on, and then Wood can take control of this fight. That's a very likely scenario. I'm backing Delgado here. I think that this kid's nasty, and I want to be on his side. He opened up as a minus 165 roughly over here. We see the line coming down. It makes a lot of sense that this line's coming down because the line should be closer. Now, if you want to back Delgado, you may be able to catch him by fight night at almost pick 'em odds. I really expect this line to continue to trend that way. It's a close fight, but I will side with Delgado getting a end of the first round, beginning of the second round knockout. And I'm going to say it's hard to even say what he lands. It's going to be one of those tornado knee, kick, spinning back fist, overhand right mixtures. Another fight that really showcases the depth of this event in the lightweight division. Mateusz Rębecki takes on Ľudovít Klein. I cannot wait to see how this fight takes place. And I'll tell you guys right now, I've been back and forth with who I had winning this fight. But just before I hopped on the mic right here and I was rewatching a specific bout, I have concretely settled in with my pick. I now know what side I want to be on here. You take a look at Ľudovít Klein's recent work. His last bout against Mateusz was atrocious. Right, he had absolutely no answer for the takedown attempts. He was taken down 6 times on 11 attempts. He was controlled for almost 9 minutes. That fight was really frustrating to watch. I lost some money on it. I did back Klein in that bout. I'm a big fan of his striking. He's very powerful. He mixes in the kicking game with his hands nicely. Fights out of the southpaw stance, which gives a lot of fighters problems as well. And it's interesting, too, when you take a look at the fact that he only has 8 documented KOs out of his 23 wins, but 5 are unknown types. So you got that kind of X factor going there. I mean, there's not an extreme high rate of knockout success, but I do believe he is a knockout artist. Okay, if he can keep the fight on the feet, he's very live to land not only a KO, but a brutal one. He'll mix knees in there, head kicks, his hands are lethal. He does all that well, but the big it factor is, can he keep a fight standing? Which, I want to circle back real quick. You take a look at the Gamrot fight we just talked about, but take a look at the bouts that he had against Mike Trizano and Nate Landwehr back in the day, all right? Showcasing early on that he was very one-dimensional. We gave him some time to work on this aspect of his game, and he went on a hell of a winning streak. But leading up to this Gamrot fight, he showcased once again that the limitations are there, and his grappling is there to be exploited. I simply feel that's the case. I feel like if he's in there with a high-level grappler, or a fighter that knows how to time some takedowns, he can be exploited. And Rębecki is that type of fighter. Okay, he's an absolute horse. He'll sit in there, he'll slug it out with you. He'll put on some of the most entertaining fights that you'll ever see. You think about the Oral Bay fight, that was nasty. The Chris Duncan loss that he just took. I mean, what a war that was. That was one of the better fights that we've seen this year. The Diego Ferreira loss, that was one that he was well out ahead, and he made a mistake. He was finished late, but he just never looked to slow the pace down. All he was looking to do was to finish Ferreira throughout that fight, and it cost him. But he has the heart of a lion. Okay, but the point I'm trying to make here is that he does have wrestling ability. Like, even in the Ferreira fight, you saw him time some beautiful takedowns where he's in on the hips in a second, ripping Ferreira down to the mat. And if he fights that type of fight, I think he could have a lot of success against Klein here. I really do. Now, if he wants to go out here and just go to war with Klein, and he also has that southpaw stance. I mean, they're gonna throw down on the feet, and he could still have success in that type of fight. But if he chooses to do that, then I would say that Klein's gonna get the better of him. I think that Klein's gonna land heavy. I think that he's gonna have Rębecki's face all disformed, and just hematomas are going to be growing everywhere. His eyes going to be sealed shut. He doesn't wear damage the best. I think Klein will win that type of bout. It wouldn't be just a guarantee, but I would definitely lean towards Klein getting the better of a striking affair and a fight that's a war taking place on the feet. Klein has a significant length advantage, and I think he could really put some damage on Rębecki. But I'm going to say that Rębecki gets the job done here, just based off the fact that I think that he can go to the takedowns, he could solidify them, and he could rain down some damage down on the mat. So if he fights an intelligent fight here, this is his bout. And you would think, with the way that the last couple of fights went for him, that he would fight a little bit of a safer fight here. Okay, he's 1-2 in his last 3 bouts. He knows he needs a win. A lot of times when we see fighters go to war and a bout prior, they don't really bring that same energy the second time. We've seen that from certain fighters. They're hurt. They took a lot of damage in a prior fight, and they kind of know they need to slow things down. It's not always the case, but we definitely have seen that. And I'm going to say that we get a measured Rębecki here that's going to change levels, and I'm going to side with the dog here. You see the line movement here. Klein opens up as a -142, goes to a -145. He's back right around a -141. Minuscule line movement, but Klein is the favorite, and I am going to side with the dog in Rębecki, who is right around a +120, +121 here. I think that there's more value on his line. I am not going to back Klein once again where I'm going to be sitting on my couch being frustrated as he has no answer for the takedowns. And if Rębecki can just push through a little bit of a war in the beginning and just time some takedowns, okay, he can still have a lot of success. And it's not like Rębecki's a fighter that has a questionable chin. All right, don't get me started again on the Fajeda fight. That was a fight. He made some mistakes, but I mean, he shows he could take a shot. I mean, this isn't a fighter that quits in there. And I think he could push through some of the damage, get his takedowns, and it should be another fun fight. But Rębecki is the more well-rounded fighter here. Give me him to get the job done. I'll say he wins via decision, and the takedowns are pivotal. In the lightweight division, we have two fighters that are very hungry to get their hand raised inside the octagon. Both of these men just recently fell flat in their UFC debuts. Both of them are 0-1. They were both finished in different ways, but make no mistake. I mean, these fighters are coming with some real urgency, as Abdul-Kareem Al-Selwady always comes with urgency. If you watch his fights, you break down his tape in the regional scene, I mean, it's a real treat. He's an absolute warrior. He's willing to go out on his shield. He's been finished in all 4 of his losses via KO. Okay, that's the deficiency in his game, but he brings in some crazy energy. Now, on the other hand, Matheus, Camilo, this is a fighter that, he fights at a team, Nova União. He's young. He's 24 years old. I haven't really been crazy about what I've seen from him. Okay, you could say his striking is his main strength. He shows to have some decent pop on his strikes. There's decent power there. He definitely can find a KO here. If he lands on Al-Selwady, he definitely can put him out. But I will say his striking is not all that. This isn't a fighter that we see stringing together combinations in the cage. He kind of has more of like a 1-2 combo type of tactic, which is more than enough to land, like I said, on Al-Selwady and finish him. It's more than enough. But I don't think that he's really that threat. And he does have some deficiencies in his grappling. We saw Gabe Green exploit that in his UFC debut. He had the rear naked choke on him. And all in all, he hit 2 of 3 takedowns. He controlled them for 2 minutes and 30 seconds. That fight didn't last all that long. You could definitely say that Camilo, he fell flat in that debut, but he was very young. There's a lot of room for growth. And this is a very winnable fight. Okay, I'll say that. This is a very winnable fight. You could pull up a good amount of regional tape on him. You could see him go to war with Dorian Ramos. That was a fight where he eventually got the 3rd round submission, but he was put on his butt a couple times in some scrambles. And I think that a fighter like Al-Selwady, who has decent grappling and pressure, can definitely put him down on the mat and control him for a bit. So we'll see how the get-up game is from Camilo. We'll see how the takedown defense holds up early on too. And we'll see how his heart and cardio hold up, because Al-Selwady is going to bring the fight to him. We saw Al-Selwady have a lot of success doing just that against George Hardwick on DWCS, where he was an underdog. And then if you go back to the regional scene, I mean, there's a lot of fun fights. Like I said, you want to pull up the victory that he had over Lucas Martins. I think that was a great showing of himself. He was very young at the time. Lucas Martins, I'm not the type of guy that throw out these type of allegations, but definitely seemed to be on something going into that fight. I'm familiar with Martins. He fought in the UFC for a little bit and had some victories inside the octagon. And you would think that Martins had all the advantages going into that match. I believe he was 30 years old. He had the UFC experience, and you would have thought that he could have landed a knockout shot on Al-Selwady, but it was Selwady that just went to war. He avoided being landed on. And although that fight technically was an injury, I mean, make no mistake, Al-Selwady was dominating the fight. He had a takedown, and he caused the injury essentially, but he was landing strikes also before even solidifying the takedown. And with his aggressive type of striking, if you let it overwhelm you, he will bombard you and land strikes on you. I'm not very high on his knockout ability. I don't really see a lot of power there. If you take a look out of his 15 victories, he has 8 stoppages via KO/TKO. Those are going to be more like ground and pound type of finishes for the most part, more just overwhelming the opposition from what I've seen from him. So we'll see if he could land something like that. And I'll just say this before we get to the odds: the constant KO losses that he's had are an issue, and he comes into this fight off of another one, right? Loik Rashabov hit him with the nasty finish in the 3rd round. That was a brutal KO loss that he just took. So he's coming into this bout off of a damaging loss. Okay, that fight took place last year. He's had some time to rest up, but I think if he gets landed on in the right way, he definitely can be finished. And we'll see if Camilo can do that. I'm going to say he doesn't. I'm going to say that Al-Selwady avoids getting hit with that big strike. It's a big if. And then from there, he'll be the fighter that's much more active. He'll probably get a couple takedowns, even though Camilo probably gets back up to his feet at points in time. We'll see maybe a little bit of rinse and repeat of that. But the activity of Al-Selwady makes me want to back him here. And I like the energy he brings. This is essentially a pick 'em type of fight. That's what you're looking at right now. Pick your poison. And I'm going to side with Al-Selwady, who should have the crowd behind him. And as long as he doesn't get knocked out, this should be his fight. I'm going to say he wins via decision. Hey, you guys, I just want to take a second to thank you for tuning in. If you're new here, I hope you like what you're seeing. I hope you smash that subscribe button and tune in regularly and cash in on these bets with me. It would mean a lot to me. For those of you guys that tune in regularly and still haven't hit that subscribe button, if you guys can, it really helps me out here. It only takes a second for you guys. Obviously, doesn't cost anything. It really helps me with all the work I'm doing here behind the scenes. And if you could all hit the like button and go follow me on my social media, I got that below. Thank you, guys. Women's strawweight division, Jaqueline Imorim takes on Mizuki. Imorim comes into this bout with some real momentum behind her. She's on a 4-fight winning streak. All 4 of those victories come by way of finish. After taking that tough UFC debut loss to Sam Hughes, the veteran Hughes, she's doing now exactly what she was doing over in the LFA. She's just showing that she's light years ahead of these girls down on the mat. And she truly is. I love the fact that she went over to American Top Team to round her game out. We've seen that they could take these polished and elite jiu-jitsu players and round out their overall game, even specifically when you're talking about women's mixed martial artists. They've done this time and time again. Now, when it comes to her striking, I still do have concerns about it, especially as she climbs up the ladder and fights higher level competition. I like her frame. She's going to have about a 4-inch reach advantage here. That number is off. She actually has more about a 60-inch wingspan. So she's long. We see the striking developing, but I don't think that it's going to be there as far as fighters up towards the top of this division. Okay, right now. She has some time to sharpen things up. I think she can kind of hold her own against Mizuki here, but if this fight were to be a straight kickboxing match, I would favor Mizuki to win this fight. All right, you take a look at Mizuki. This is a fighter that kind of disappeared from the fight game for some time after she took an L against Amanda Lemos. She was gone for about 3 years, and she bounced back with the victory over Hannah Goldie in her return. But even in that Goldie fight, which if you guys remember Hannah Goldie, which I'm sure you all do, I'm sure you guys are all subscribed to her OnlyFans. But remember, it was the teller that got her on MMA Live Discussion first. And she was on an edible, she said, there in the show when we were chatting it up for a little bit. That was when she was so green. She just came off DWCS and all that. And she doesn't really have to fight. I mean that seriously. I think she doesn't have to fight. She makes money other ways, and she has a big-time following. And I just don't think that Hannah Goldie, I think we all know she was never on that level. She had some physical attributes that she brought to the cage, but she was a fighter that got into MMA by doing cardio kickboxing classes at an LA Fitness. I mean, that's the type of fighter you're talking there. Meanwhile, that fight that Mizuki just had against her came down to a round, and Goldie even controlled her for 2 minutes and 51 seconds down on the mat. Right? I don't like the way that looks. Okay, Mizuki is a fighter that has, I guess, somewhat of a decorated background in judo, right? She's more of a career mixed martial artist. This is a fighter that was she's a fighter that was battling against fighters like Alexa Grasso back in Invicta. She fought a lot of high-level fighters back in Invicta when she was young, Karolina Kovacevic. And I didn't like the way that she looked in that return bout. You could chalk it up to ring rust or whatnot. Maybe she looks a lot better here. You could say, in her favor, she was able to go to the judges' scorecards against Verna John D. Roba, who's a very high-level jiu-jitsu player. That's something that she has kind of going for herself here. But all in all, I'm not crazy about it. She went to a split decision against Yanen Wu. There's a lot of questionable performances going on here. She has decent striking, decent grappling, but I think that Amorim is going to close the distance and get this fight down to the mat, and she's going to sink in an armbar. How about that? I'm calling the armbar. She's going to find her sub. Mizuki has never been finished before. She's shown to be pretty crafty and durable there, but I think that Amorim she's working and fighting at a different level right now. And she finds the finish every time she gets her hand raised, and I think that she does it once again here. I'm calling the armbar. This fight will touch the mat at one point in time, and she'll pull it off. Now, just quickly to play devil's advocate, if Amorim falls flat in her face, it's going to be due to her struggling to get this fight down to the mat, and Mizuki using some of her her striking abilities. She kind of has like a Muay Thai type of striking style, and she could land a little bit. She'll get the better of those exchanges, but I don't think that's how this fight's going to play out. I don't. We take a look at the money line here. Amorim is right around a -450. I think that if you're going to bet this fight, if you want to bet this fight, if you want to target Amorim, I think you should look to target her to pull off that sub. And maybe early on, if she gets this fight down to the mat when they're nice and dry, it's probably going to happen then. That's what I'm calling. I'm calling a first round armbar. Ikram Aliskerov takes on Jun Young Park in the middleweight division. And Aliskerov comes into this match off of a very impressive bounce back victory where he ran through Andre Muniz. And Muniz is a very relevant name to bring up because he, in fact, is the last man to defeat Park. And it was the grappling where Muniz was able to have a lot of success. And we know Aliskerov is very high level there. So that is an obvious path to victory. Aliskerov has been training with the best of them. We know that he trains with all the high-level Dagestanis, Khabib, and all that. He also makes the trip down to South Florida to put in a lot of work at American Top Team in Coconut Creek. His striking has taken some major strides. And the fact that he's such an elite grappler, it allows him to really open up with his striking. And I think that we could see a little bit of that here. Now, of course, as he looks to do that, the one issue that we've seen from him is he has been vulnerable to being knocked out. His 2 losses, in fact, come by way of KO. But take a look at the level of competition. You're talking about 2 of the best fighters to have ever fought in this division. Okay, Khamzat Chimaev. The track that he's on, he's pushing towards being, forget about just the greatest middleweight fighter that we've ever seen. If he stays more active, you guys know how I feel about him. He could prove to be the greatest talent that we've ever seen. Okay, so that was the first L that he took on the regional scene back in 2019 at Brave FC. If you guys remember, he got hit with that uppercut. That was a fight that we all used to look back at when Chimaev was starting to take off, and that was a high-level matchup even back then. Since then, though, or after that KO loss, Aliskerov goes on to wreak havoc, finish fight after fight, start to defeat recognizable names as he's made his way into the UFC. Knocked out Phil Hawes. What he did to Warley Alves was nasty. Finished him up as well. Of course, submitted Mario Souza on DWCS. All right, now I know a lot of you are probably saying the level of competition is not that great, but still, you could see that the talent is there. And then the other loss, of course, was against Robert Whitaker. And just circling back to that point, I mean, these are some of the best fighters that this division has ever seen. I don't like the way that he's losing the fights. I think that there is something to be said about the way he's losing those matches, the way his striking defense is giving out, and he's just getting finished and getting flatlined the way he is. But I like the way that he looked against Andre Muniz, and I think that Park is not really a big step up in competition. I think that Park is on an even playing field as a Muniz. You could say, okay, he has better boxing skills potentially, but even with that being said, Park isn't a fighter that goes out there and lands those types of KOs. He has just 5 knockouts out of his 19 victories. He's not really that type of threat. He's more of a balanced threat. He has good wrestling, and I think that Aliskerov can avoid being KO'd here, and he'll be the much higher level fighter here. But I expect him to change levels and have a lot of success grappling. I think that he'll get on top position, and he'll have a good amount of time where he's raining down ground and pound. Now, does he find a finish in this fight? I think that he can. I think that he can find a finish. We have seen Park finish before. 3 of his 6 losses, half of them do come by way of finish. He's been subbed twice. He's been KO'd once before. We know that Aliskerov is a well-rounded threat. He'll sub you down on the mat, or he'll finish you up with strikes. And just to highlight some of those losses that Park has taken to kind of understand the level of opponent, Gregory Rodriguez hit him with that standing KO. If you remember that, he was just bombarding him with strikes. Big power there, but the other loss came by way of Fluffy Hernandez, and that was in his UFC debut. He was up in that fight. Just to kind of also show you when he's hitting on all cylinders, the ability he does have. He was up in that fight against Fluffy before Fluffy had the comeback at the very end of the second round, and he hit him with an anaconda choke. Okay, but Park was looking good there and showing his wrestling ability. He was in top position, but I quite simply think that Aliskerov is just fighting at a different level right now, and I think he's going to have success changing levels. And I think that we could see him start to unload and have a finish unravel to him, whether it's a sub or some type of TKO stoppage. I don't know. I think he's going to be fighting very aggressively here. I'm going to take Aliskerov to get a TKO stoppage. I'm going to say he gets a TKO stoppage. Not a lot of confidence on that call. I think that it's possible Aliskerov wins just a dominant decision here as well. I think that's on the table, but I'm going to call a TKO stoppage for Aliskerov. On the money line right now, he's right around a minus 270, and I have no issue with that line. I think that he should be a solid favorite here. I think that he is a real threat in this division. He's currently not ranked. I think he will be ranked very shortly, and he's a fighter that will go on to string off some victories, and we'll see how he performs against the best of the best down the line in 2026. In the heavyweight division, we have Beast Boy Chris Barnett taking on Hamdy Abdelwahab. And what to make of this match here? We know every time Barnett steps down into the cage, it's going to be a spectacle. It's going to be fun to watch. He brings that type of energy. Obviously, his stature and his physique, it makes it almost that much more interesting when you see a man of his size throwing rolling thunder at your head. I mean, this dude will throw spinning kicks at your face and all that. So he's interesting to watch fight in that aspect. But without a doubt, I mean, he's a very limited fighter, and there are some major holes in his game. And one of the main problems I have with him is I kind of wonder how disciplined. I don't even wonder. I feel like I kind of know he's not the most disciplined fighter. You could see it in his physique. You could see it in his activity, going into the Kennedy and Sheku fight where he was ran through, which took place a year ago. He was coming into that fight off of over a 2-year layoff. So it is hard to take him serious. But even with that being said, he does bring in some raw abilities for a man of his size. And his size does play a factor. We've seen it play a factor against lower level fighters when they struggle to take him down and he flops on top of you. Good luck getting him off of you. Right? You think back to the John Vellante fight, the Jake Collier fight. When he's on top of these dudes, they're not getting him off. Now, if he does get on top of Hamdy, it'll be very interesting to see how Hamdy looks there. But the major issue I have on the other side is Abdelwahab is coming off an atrocious performance against Muhammad Usman. It was a fight where he showed to have real cardio issues. He was looking pretty decent in that first round, if you guys remember. And then the last 2 rounds, I mean, the activity fell off a cliff. He was just basically throwing fluff at the air, and Usman was able to outland him significantly and take those later 2 rounds. And a lot of people, I mean, you guys know, you're telling me about it all the time. A lot of people think Muhammad Usman is just a complete scrub. So that's not a good look then. And I do believe that Abdelwahab is not the best fighter to back specifically where his betting odds are going into this fight, which we'll get to in a second. He's not the most reliable fighter. He's a fighter that has failed drug tests before, and that may play into some of these suspect performances. I really like the way that he looked against Dontel Mays. That was the fight that he failed the drug test for. If you guys remember, I mean, he looked really good in that fight. He was changing levels. He was showcasing some boxing skills to go along with the accomplished wrestling background he has. He was able to defeat Jamal Pogues, which was a close fight. A lot of people thought he lost that fight. He's not that guy. I know that. I understand that he's not that guy. But who exactly is Chris Barnett? What kind of shape is Barnett going to be, and how's Barnett's activity going to look in the later rounds? And the way that Kennedy ran through him in that last fight, that was very suspect. I have to lean towards Abdelwahab's way. I do have to lean towards his way. I think he's just a little bit more of a professional fighter, but he has his own issues. There's not a lot of confidence in the pick, and I will say that the value is on the underdog. And take a look at the line movement here. I find this very funny. I don't remember the last line I've seen like this. It almost looks like there's like a joke going on as you just see this little zigzag thing going on. But all in all, you're seeing Barnett's line go from a plus 315 down to the upper plus 200. So I'm curious. It did start to dip back the other way as it went all the way down to a plus 285. But I'm curious to see where that line settles. I think that the value's on the dog here. If Barnett came into this fight with just a little bit of discipline behind him in this camp, he has some raw abilities, man. I could see the head movement working. Maybe he stuffs takedowns and he pushes the pace late, and he's a little bit more active than Abdelwahab. So values on the dog here. I think that this is going to be an ugly fight, and it's really hard to put your finger on exactly how it's going to play out. But I think you have to pick Abdelwahab to win the fight, and I think that he'll have some motivation behind him too after that recent performance. And I think he'll be a little bit more professional here, and he'll do just enough to take 2 rounds and win this fight via decision. We got a flyweight bout between Azat Maksum and Mitch Raposo, and both these fighters really have their backs up against the wall because the loser is going to be on a 3-fight losing skid and very easily could be cut by the UFC, and even more so in the case of Mitch because he also has that L that he took on Dana White's Contender Series. He took an L on The Ultimate Fighter, and he really just hasn't looked good inside the cage. I was there live for that last fight where he took on Su Mudaerji. In fact, I'll tell you real quick, for those of you guys that follow me on IG at MMA Fortune Teller, you guys probably saw a little montage clip. I have it pinned towards the top of my IG, but I did bump into Raul Rosas Jr., and a big crowd of us did, and we were all kind of walking in with him, and he was really having some fun with us. We were all doing the chiwiwis and all that. And right after he kind of dissipated from the crowd and went into the arena, I snuck over to the side. I didn't go to my initial seats because I just got in the arena. I heard a fight kicking off. I believe that was the first fight of the night. And I just snuck into this little side, not even following him. And next thing you know, I look over, I see Raul and his boys just sitting right to the left of me. No one's around us. We were in like a little section over there. And I watched Mitch's last fight against Su right there next to Raul, like listening to Raul give his boys advice about what was going on and what he would be doing. It was kind of interesting. And, I probably should have went over and said what's up to him. And as I was sitting there, some guy came from some seats down the way and went up and said what's up and got a picture. I just never really been that guy, and almost to a fault. There's times where I've been in situations where I wish I kind of would have just went up and talked to a certain fighter or a celebrity. I've sat right next to Tyron Woodley at the airport. Literally, he's sitting 2 seats next to me back when he was in Strikeforce, and I didn't say a word to him. There's been a couple of times I've had situations play out like that, but I just didn't want to bother Raul. Okay, and not to go on too much about that story, but back to this fight. As I sat there watching this fight live in the arena, it was a very bad performance by Mitch, in my assessment. Even though it went to a split decision, which somehow both of his last 2 losses went to a split decision against Andre Lima and Mudaerji. I mean, Mudaerji was in complete control of that fight. I know that Mitch hit 6 takedowns on 19 attempts, okay, but they were very shortly lived. Su was bouncing back up to his feet and then was starting to stuff all those takedowns. Mitch wasn't doing anything with them. There was no ground and pound, no submission threats. Okay, his striking is very subpar. He's undersized, and I'm kind of just completely out on him as a prospect. Back in the day, I thought that this was a fighter, coming from the Ultimate Fighter. He had some potential. He was young, and he had a little bit of a wrestling background, and I wasn't so harsh on him, for some of those early performances, like when he lost to Shalinian and when he was ran through by Jake Hadley on Dana White's Contender Series, because he was very young back then. But now, I mean, not that he's a finished product, but I believe he's 27 years old now, and I just don't think that, yeah, he is, and I don't see that the potential being there. Meanwhile, when it comes to Azat, this is a fighter that needs to polish his striking a bit more. But how about that performance he just had against Tegor Ulanbekov, where he actually hit 3 takedowns? He was 3 of 7, and he stuffed every single one of Ulanbekov's takedowns. There was another takedown. I don't know if they even gave Maksum credit for it, but Tegor blatantly grabbed the cage. And I thought that was a really good showing of himself. One of the judges gave him a round. It wasn't like he was winning the fight, but it was close. It was a closely contested match. And 30-27 really doesn't describe the performance. And Tegor is a high-level fighter. Okay, so I think you could take a lot from that. I think Azat is going to stuff any of the takedown attempts that Mitch tries to throw his way. And in fact, I think he probably reverses him and then controls Mitch down on the mat. Maybe he could snag a backup or something like that. On the feet, Maksum's striking is not the most polished, but I'll take his striking over Mitch's, because Mitch's striking is just, it's not there. It's not there. And Maksum's going to have about a 5-inch reach advantage. I think that this fight really screams Azat Maksum winning it. And then we could talk about, does he find a finish here? You take a look at out of his 15 victories, we have 6 unknown types, but from what we're seeing, 3 KOs, 4 subs, a couple of decisions. It's really scattered across the board. And of course, he's 0-2 inside the UFC. 1-2. He did win his UFC debut against Tyson Nam, and I believe that was a split decision as well. And Tyson Nam, not a bad fighter. Not a bad fighter. He didn't consistently get his hand raised, but he was a hard hitter, and he wasn't a bad fighter. So, even though that fight played out closely, It's not a bad look for him there. And I'm going to say that Azat wins this fight via decision. I'm going to say he doesn't find the finish here, just as he did in that UFC debut fight. I think that Mitch can hang around. Mitch has only been finished once. That was that rear naked choke loss to Jake Hadley on DWCS. And, while we're talking about that, I'll just quickly bring up that loss aged horribly because Hadley he never moved forward with his game. And it's almost like he regressed and he never looked to be that good of a fighter. And I know he's fighting outside the UFC these days. And I was very disappointed to see where his career went. I thought he had a lot of promise, but that loss ages even worse for Mitch there. And I say that Mitch loses a decision here. You take a look at the money line as it right now. He's opening up right around a minus 300, and we're seeing slight action start to come in on him across the books. He's like a minus 315 right now. And I'm thinking that he's going to close closer to like a minus 400. I think the closer we get to this fight, I think people are going to be aware that Raposo is he's not that guy. And he's 30 years old. He's going to start to build off that competitive fight he just had with Tager. This fight really screams Azat to me, and I'll say he wins the decision. What's up, guys? For anybody that's interested, if you want my official targets for this event and for any event moving forward, you guys can shoot me an email or DM me on Instagram. I'll give you further details there. I got a couple options, but as I said in the preview, this is a card that I really like. I see a couple spots that I just feel very confident in. If you guys want my official targets, reach out to me and I'll give you those options. Which one, of course, if you're looking to sign up to a new sports book, which you'll also get 100% deposit match in your account, and it's a great book, reach out to me. I'll give you further information there. Otherwise, I'll give you my pricing. Thanks, guys. We got ranked light heavyweight action set to take place here between Alexander Rakic and the professional Azamat Murzakanov. I'll tell you guys what, when Rakic first kicked his UFC career off, I really thought he was going to be the next big thing. This dude was so physically intimidating, the way he walked into the cage. And then it was the Justin Ledet performance. If you guys remember, he didn't find the finish in that fight, but he absolutely dominated Ledet. And up until that point in time, I can't think of another fighter in the light heavyweight division that showcased to be so dangerous with his leg kicking game. I mean, he just butchered Ledet's legs. He was chopping him out from under him. And after that victory, he goes on to steamroll Devin Clark in the first round, and then he hits Jimmy Manuwa with the head kick in the first round as well. And Manuwa was a terror around that time. I mean, all signs were pointing towards Rakic really making a run at the belt. And then that's where things started to get rocky, right? It started with a split decision loss to Volkan Ozdemir, a fighter that we all have a lot of respect for. But from there, he bounces back with 2 victories. They were okay performances, right? He gets a W against Anthony Smith and Thiago Santos. But then he gets injured in the Jan Blachowicz fight, which was a real big fight for him. I believe that was a main event. It was very disappointing to see how that fight played out. It was a fight we were all looking forward to on that night, if you guys remember, and it was just a real lackluster end to the night. And due to the injury, he obviously has to spend some time away from the fight game, and he comes back and looks pretty damn good in the first round against Yuri Prohaska. I just rewatched that fight. I mean, Yuri Prohaska did what he does best. He has a little bit of a slow start. He's eaten all the strikes that Rakic throws his way, and then starts to just dismantle him as he picks up the pace. And don't get me started on Prohaska, because you guys know that's my favorite fighter in the game. From an entertainment standpoint, I think he is the most fun fighter to watch, and you run the tape back on that one. But I think that was an alarming performance by Rakic, because we saw when he starts to get tagged up, man, he gets wobbly in there and he doesn't really like it. And you could tell that Prohaska was just taking the fight from him. And Murzakanov has big time power. I think that he is the more technical striker here. I think he's going to be more crisp on the inside. He's going to be undersized quite a bit. But I think that Murzakanov is going to get on the inside and he's going to land some of those heavy hooks and those heavy strikes. And I don't know how Rakic is going to take those type of strikes. I'm not saying he's necessarily going to get flatlined, but I think that he's going to feel them and it's going to start to take the fight out of him. And I wouldn't be surprised if we see him start to wilt and Murzakanov gets another TKO knockout type of finish. I mean, you take a look at the work he's putting in. All right. Yeah, he has the first round KO on DWCS against Matheus Scheffel. From there, he had a very awkward fight against Tafana Chukwi, which he was behind. He was en route to losing that fight on the scorecards before getting the finish in the third round when he hit him with the flying knee, right? So showing to have real heart and desire to come back even when he's down. Now, you could also say, why was he even down in the first place? I think it was a little bit of an off day because ever since that fight, he's looked phenomenal. And he went on to win, 4 more fights in a row, ran through Ribeiro. I know that's a low-level fighter, but the way he did it, I mean, he is looking really sharp right now, and I'm definitely going to pick him to get the better of Rakic here. I know some people are looking at this fight as if Rakic is going to have this length advantage, and he can cram the leg kicks from the outside and throw straights and maybe kind of outpoint Mirzakhanov, and maybe hoping that Rakic can replicate what Enchuki did in that bout early on, kind of outpointing him if Mirzakhanov starts off slow. But I would say to you, Mirzakhanov is not, he has not showed anything of what he showed in that first fight, the beginning part of that fight against Enchuki as of recently. He has much more urgency, and I think that he's going to be on point in this fight. So, I got to side with Mirzakhanov. I like Rakic. I like him. I think he still has time to turn things around and get some momentum behind him once again, but he's really in a tough spot here because this dude Mirzakhanov is still undefeated. I think he's the real deal. You want to see the strength of schedule start to pick up, but I think he is the real deal, and he's going to have success against some of the higher level fighters in this division. He has grappling ability to go with the striking, and due to straight up he's straight up Pluto from Popeye. That's how I've been describing him ever since DWCS. Something about him just, especially when he kind of had the balding hair still on the top. Now he shaves it, but this dude is just, he's built like a gorilla, man. And I think he gets the job done. I think he gets the TKO stoppage in this bout here. And look at the line here. We got a very close line, which is interesting. I like that. He is right around a -115 right now. We saw Mirzakhanov opening up on some of these books as a slight dog, very slight. Essentially, it's at pick-em odds, but there was a slight lean towards Rakic's way. Now you see a little bit of action coming in on Mirzakhanov. I think Mirzakhanov will settle in right around a -145, 140 favorite, and I'll say that he gets the finish in the second round via TKO. So we jump into this bantamweight matchup between Umar Nurmagomedov and Mario Batista. I'm going to say this off the rip, which is it's definitely going to point towards who I have winning the fight, which I think we already know who I have. All right, if I had to pick a fighter that is going to be the bantamweight champion of the world at the end of 2026, if I had to pick one fighter, I would say Umar Nurmagomedov is the champ in this division. Okay, just to show you how high I still am on him, even though he comes off that tough loss to Merab, which was a close fight. I mean, he gassed out late, and Merab took clear advantage of that, but it was very competitive early on, and I think that Umar is going to look better than ever going into this match. He still hasn't even cracked the 30 marker, and we know that Khabib has been putting him through the ringer leading up to this fight here. And this match very well is a number one contenders bout, okay? And that's how I'm looking at it. I think that the winner of this fight will be fighting for the title next. As how crazy is this, man? Merab, of course, is looking to defend his title once again before the end of the year. He's taking out Petr Yan in December. That's crazy. But you take a look at the top of the bantamweight division, there's really nobody else next in line. Yadong Song is coming off a victory over Henry Cejudo, but he had a loss before that. He's only on a one-fight win streak. It's obviously not going to be Sugar Sean O'Malley, Corey Sandhagen. I mean, look at all the top fighters in this division. I mean, this is the match here. If Bautista went out here and defeated Umar, I mean, what a feather in his cap. I mean, he really has a case to be fighting for the belt next. And Umar, I mean, I don't see any reason why the UFC wouldn't want to give him another opportunity against Merab. I think that's a fight that would be anticipated by many. I mean, we saw they're giving Petr Yan another opportunity. Merab is at that point where he has to defend the title against fighters he's already defeating. Now, when it comes to Batista, I'll wrap this up here, man. I think he's a really good fighter, but I don't think that he's fought anyone near on the level of a Nurmagomedov. Now, Jose Aldo, of course, in his prime, that's a different story, but an aged Jose Aldo, we know what he did to him there. He held him up against the cage. It was a very close fight anyway. Patchy Mix I just can't figure out how Patchy Mix ended up being as bad as he ended up being in the UFC. Okay, I was following him for a long time over in Bellator. He may have never really been him, but I can't believe how atrocious he ended up being in the octagon. And of course, he'll get another opportunity, but Patchy mix it's not all that. So that victory really doesn't stand out as much as it did. And even before Mix's last bout, I still was looking at that fight a little bit more of a case where Mix let the jitters get to him. So, I mean, take those for what you will. The resume is not bad. I mean, Ricky Simone's good. Damon Blackshear's good. But these fighters are not on the level of a hungry, motivated Nurmagomedov. I think Umar wins this fight. And now we could talk about, does he get the finish? Which his 2 prior victories before the L to Merab were via decision. He couldn't get finishes in those bouts. He finished Ioni Barcelos, of course. That was nasty, the way he knocked him out. I went to a decision against Nate Maness. All right, if you forgot about that. Now, just because he's not getting finishes in these fights, let's not act like he's not extremely dominant. It's not a phenomenal fighter. Submissions over Kelleher and Murazov before that. And we know that his submission game is nasty, but he's also a danger striker. This is a tough call for me to say whether he gets the finish or not, because I very well can see Batista holding up. He's looked pretty sharp, and I think that he can make it to the final bell. I'm going to lean towards that being the case. I'm going to say that Nurmagomedov dominates, but Batista, right now in his prime, he's sharp enough to make it to the final bell. So maybe you want to look at getting Nurmagomedov to win this fight via decision to get the line to come down, because maybe this minus 460 money line is not that appetizing to you. But I will tell you this, I feel very confident that Umar gets the job done here, that he wins this fight. And I feel very confident that he looks just as dominant as ever. I think we're going to see like a 2.0 version of himself. Mark my words on that. And I say he's the champion at the end of 2026. Now, if we're going to talk about 2.0 type of fighters, who better than to talk about next than Alexander Volkov, who's taking on Jailton Almeida here. I have this also as a #1 contender spot. The winner of this should be fighting for the title next. Volkov really should be fighting for the title right now. We all know he, not only did he defeat Ciryl Gane in that last bout, but I thought that he pretty much dominated him. That decision was one of the most atrocious decisions that the fight game has ever seen. And those judges should be held fully responsible for what they did. But we move forward, and think about this too. For those of you guys that feel like, hey, we've already seen what a fight with Aspinall and Volkov looks like after Aspinall ran through him years ago, which that first fight took place back in 2022. All right. Look how Volkov has looked in his rematches, or in the rematch against Ciryl Gane. Ciryl Gane had that victory over him the first time they fought, which took place back in 2021. I feel like Volkov took his game to a whole nother level right after that Aspinall loss. I really do. The way he knocked out Rosenstruck, how dominant he looked in the Pavlovich fight. Okay, it's the way he's looking in the cage. He's such a tall fighter, and I feel like his athleticism has kind of went to the next level. And I'm sure it has a lot to do with the training that he's put in. If you see his Instagram, man, this dude trains really hard. And I think that he's fully caught up with his body. You guys know how it is for those tall dudes, right? They go through that early growth spurt. It takes them a while to figure out their giraffe legs. And it looks like he's just figuring them out now, which, I say that jokingly, but don't also forget that at 36 years old, all right, in the heavyweight division, there's a lot of room for growth still. I say he's starting to enter his prime right around now, and his prime is a serious task for anybody in this division. So, I mean, I'll label Volkov as the dark horse, and you guys know how high I am on Aspinall, but if someone's going to go out there and maybe frustrate Aspinall, I think Volkov is the real deal. And this will be a great test to see if that's the case, because Almeida is going to look to test his takedown defense and his grappling. Almeida is phenomenal with that aspect of his game. I mean, when he gets in on you and he gets you down to the mat, I mean, he dominates with his jiu-jitsu and his athleticism. As of recently, he's been showcasing that he's sharpening up other aspects of his game, as his striking has looked much better as of recently. He looked really good in the Spivak fight. But I'll tell you what, the Curtis Blades loss was still a little suspect to me when things weren't going his way. It's debatable, but it's almost like he was looking for a way out. But at the same time, I mean, he is getting huge elbows smashed on the side of his head as the takedown was being stuffed, and Blades has serious power. But I mean, I could see Volkov stuffing takedowns and putting Almeida in a spot where he gets very frustrated and maybe wilts and gets finished. I could definitely see that being the case. It's going to start with how Volkov looks when the takedowns are shot on him. And I think that he's going to look much better in those positions than he did when he faced off against Curtis Blades back in the day. If you guys remember, I think that was the main event years ago. And if you remember, his takedown defense wasn't up to par. And there was multiple fights where Volkov's takedown defense wasn't up to par, even though they were against very high-level fighters. But I think that he went back to the drawing board and he has sharpened things up. And, I mean, the Derek Lewis fight should have been a victory. Don't get me started on that one. You guys know the story. I don't want to be like an old man here repeating those stories, but I was in Vegas and that cost me a lot of money. That hurt, but that was a masterclass before he got caught. He was breaking strike records in the heavyweight division. His striking is elite. I think he has a clear advantage here. If he keeps it standing, can he keep it standing? If he doesn't keep it standing, Almeida very well can make it a long night for him down on the mat, controlling the long body and having a lot of success down there. Maybe he mounts him and gets a finish in his own right. But I like Volkov here. And take a look at the odds. Siding with another dog here. Volkov opened up right around a plus 175. We saw some action coming in on him where he went all the way to a plus 130. And now it's starting to go back the other way. Once again, he's a plus 150 dog. I'm interested to see where this line settles. I think people like what they're seeing from Almeida as of recently, as he showcased to be more than just a grappler. As you saw, the athleticism and striking shining on another level. I think that's what people like there, and I understand that, but I'm going to side with my dog Volkov here. I think that he is more than live. I'm picking him to win the fight. The value, I think, is definitely on Volkov. It should be a great heavyweight match. Give me Volkov to get a late stoppage. Not a lot of confidence in the stoppage. I could see him winning a decision too, as Almeida tries to stall if he's losing even then against the cage and maybe avoids a firefight. But give me a second or third round, late second round TKO. The UFC's strawweight title is up for grabs here as we have a rematch between Virna Jandiroba and Mackenzie Dern. Remember, they fought back in 2020 and the first fight was very competitive. Okay. Dern ended up sneaking by with the victory, winning it 29-28. But that fight played out very closely. I just rewatched the whole thing. The important thing to note, if you look at it like this, was when that fight took place at the time, Dern was just 27 years old, while Jandiroba was 32, and Jandiroba had about double the amount of MMA experience. So you would think there was a lot of advantages that she had in that fight, and she still didn't have enough to defeat Dern. Now we enter this fight, and Dern should, on paper, be a much more polished product, as she's now 32, and you would think that Jandiroba at 37 would start to be declining. Now, it's easy just to throw that out there, but it's hard to know how accurate that actually will play out because Jandiroba has looked pretty good as of recently. I mean, she really has had a late resurgence, I would say. She's kind of like taken her game to another level as she's aged. She's very strong. We know her jiu-jitsu's sharp. Her striking it's simplistic, but she makes it work at times. I'm going to say that Dern gets the better of the striking here. I will say that. I think that she'll be a little bit more active, and I could just see her getting the better in those exchanges. The first fight, it actually played out pretty close on the feet, though. I'll say that. Now, when it comes to the grappling, it's so close as well, and it was very close in the first fight. It's really hard for me to say who is going to be in top position, who's going to be dominating those grappling exchanges, because I saw Jandiroba have Dern, I don't know if I want to say in vulnerable positions, but she was on top of her at times, kind of dominating for a few minutes, and I wouldn't be surprised if she's in a position like that here once again. But I also wouldn't be surprised if Dern does something flashy or does something really slick down there as well, because Dern is phenomenal down on the mat. So I'm really excited to see how this fight plays out. Now we get 5 rounds this time around, which makes it a little bit more intriguing. Dern looked phenomenal in her last fight as she submitted the very high caliber jiu-jitsu player and Amanda Ribas, the black belt there. So showcasing that she can go out there and pull off a sub with just a couple seconds left in that fight. And she's taken some losses. If you want to do a little bit of MMA math, take it for what you will, but she did just lose to Amanda Lemos, and then Jandiroba's in there with Lemos and she submits her. I mean, there's just like a lot of moving parts going on here. I'm going to side with Dern winning this fight. I think that her striking will be just a little bit more active, and that will be able to solidify and snag up a couple extra rounds that are needed here to get the job done. And, Jandiroba's strong, she's stiff, and she's robotic. She'll throw those little 1-2s, and Dern's striking defense it's pretty bad at times too. So you know that a couple of those will probably land, and we'll probably see Dern bloodied up again the same way that she was the last time. I think that this is a very close fight on paper, and it probably is going to play out as a very close fight. And I'll just say this real quick before we jump into the odds. As far as either fighter finding a finish, we know that they're very live to submit their opponents, but you take a look, they've never been subbed. They're very hard to sub, and I'm going to say neither fighter finds a finish here. I'm going to say Mackenzie Dern wins possibly a split decision, or she wins 3-2 as far as the rounds go. I'm going to say this fight plays out closely. Dern was the dog initially. She opened up being around a plus 102 dog, and now we see her right around a minus 130 favorite. And I kind of understand the movement. Dern has the name. She has the youth. I think that, like, how we kick this segment off, I think that has a lot to do with why people are siding with her, the youth, and being a little bit more active and having the jiu-jitsu skills to nullify and handle John D. Roba's real strength. But not a lot of confidence in the pick. Give me Dern to win via decision. I got to be honest with you guys, as we head over to the main event, the first thing that came to mind as I'm fresh off of breaking down more tape on Tom Aspinall and watching some of his highlights is what a shame it is that we may never get to see Tom Aspinall face off against Francis Ngannou and even Jon Jones. Okay, you talk about those three fighters, we never get to see any of them fight each other. It's such a shame that the heavyweight division's finest aren't able to fight each other, because the UFC has always delivered for us in that manner, whether it was going over there and signing the whole Strikeforce roster. I mean, they've always put the best fights together for the most part. Of course, I know we didn't get to see Fedor Emelianenko in the UFC, but they did everything that they could have, essentially. I mean, I would have loved to seen him facing off against Brock Lesnar or Cain Velasquez. That would have been great. But here we are again today, still having issues with seeing the premier heavyweights face off against each other. And let's be honest, the heavyweight division is the most prestigious division. There's just no question about that. I love watching lower weight classes battle, but there's nothing like watching two mammoth heavyweights step into the cage and face off against each other. And especially when we're talking elite fighters, because we know how shallow this division is. We know we see. I mean, we broke down a couple fights on the card earlier, right? At least one. You're talking these heavyweight bouts where these fighters are so low level, and some of them are ranked. Okay, not to throw shade at my boy Valter there, but I mean, this division is shallow. But when you get the premier heavyweights, it's so fun to watch these big boys move the way that they move. And Tom Aspinall moves just about like no other. I think he is the most elite talent that we've ever seen. Now, Ciryl Gane, he moves very well also, and he's a nasty striker. And I don't want to completely overlook him here. And before I jump into the prediction and the final decision here, which we'll get to quickly, which you guys all know, I'm on Aspinall. I'm going to play devil's advocate real quick. If Ciryl Gane can push this fight to the later rounds, and if he can keep this fight standing, okay, he can definitely potentially have this fight play out closely and win a decision. And you certainly have to say that he's always live to land a KO. It's the heavyweight division, and he's a sharpshooter. So, I mean, he could definitely land a knockout as well. But he has to stuff takedowns. I think what we're going to see, just to circle back real quick, I think what we're going to see is a lot of what we saw, or a little bit of what we saw in that shortly lived fight between Gane and Jon Jones, which lasted just over 2 minutes before he got caught in an elementary guillotine up against the cage. And Jon Jones, I mean, what a stud he is. But I think Tom Aspinall can definitely replicate that. Tom has been training jiu-jitsu since he's a kid. He's a stud athlete. His striking's phenomenal. I think he's the better striker here. He's the better MMA fighter. He's the better wrestler, the better jiu-jitsu player. You name it, I think Tom's going to be ahead of Gane. And I think that Aspinall is going to be the greatest heavyweight fighter of all time. And I think, like I said earlier, I think we're going to get to see him fight Jon Jones. I think Jon Jones is actually going to step up to the plate. And then I'm going to say Aspinall wins that fight as well. I think Aspinall right now in his prime, he definitely takes out Jon Jones. I really, really do. I think he takes out anybody on planet Earth. You put Tom Aspinall in a room, in a cage with anyone on planet Earth, there's no weapons involved. It's Tom Aspinall that is going to walk out of the room the victor. And we get to watch him put on performances for us for years to come. Because remember, 32 in the heavyweight division it's like being 28, 27. So we're going to get to see him go out there and continue to perform. And the only other way you may see him lose a fight or lose this fight is also you got to be worrisome about an injury, right? Like the injury we saw against Blades. And, which he had that knee injury. He goes out there and gets redemption over Blades, finishes him in just a minute. I mean, just to kind of right the wrong there. But if you're lucky, maybe he gets injured in there somehow. And that's kind of how it was for John Jones, right? Chael Sonnen came the closest to defeating John Jones. Matt Hamill defeated him, but, Chael Sonnen almost defeated him due to John Jones hurting himself with his toe ripping off his foot. I mean, that's how when you have fighters like this, good luck. And right now, Tom Aspinall is right around a -350. He opened up as a -377 over here. And I would love to see action continue to come in on Gane so I can get in on this line. I would really like to see that. I want to see this line come down. I would love to grab Tommy right around a -300. I would absolutely love that. Other than that, this is a fight that we will be talking more about in our specific method of victory prop edition video, which you guys know I do unravel for the big cards. And we will have a special betting video for this card. So stay tuned for that. But we'll see what kind of value we can get there. But I like Aspinall inside the distance. I say he pulls off a first-round submission. All right, guys, that's going to wrap this one up. As you notice, I'm here in front of your face once again for some closing thoughts. I haven't been doing these for some time. And, I've seen a couple people come in with the negative comments about the whole closing thoughts section. Meanwhile, we get 10 times, 20 times more the positive feedback. And I'll be very clear. The reason why I stopped had nothing to do with those negative Nancy's. Okay. I had nothing to do with that. Really, I've been working on some things here behind the scenes, and, I try to keep it a little bit more professional and more towards the predictions, but a lot of people have been asking me to bring them back. And what I'll probably end up doing is just kind of popping in and giving some closing thoughts for the bigger events, but also even with your smaller events, I'll probably just give you more of a formal goodbye, because I think a lot of you guys are getting upset as I just departed from your screen there really quickly. But, what I'll leave you with here, I haven't even thought about what I'm going to say right now. And this it's a basic one that comes to mind, but I really believe it's crucial for everyone to remember this, especially for us in this community, as we like to bet on sports. Make sure, right now you got the MLB playoffs going on. You got the NBA's kicking back off soon. The NHL's going down. Right, college football's every weekend. We got the UFC fights every single weekend. Make sure you got good balance with your life, and make sure you're not getting consumed and betting every single day. And especially if you're losing and you're putting yourself in a rough spot. I hope all of you guys are being responsible out there. I'm going to leave you guys with that, because for all you guys that tune in, obviously, I wish nothing but the best for you, man. You guys could be tuned into other shows, and you're here with the teller. And I hope you guys are being smart with your bankrolls, and you're not putting yourself in a vulnerable situation, or at the very least, you're not making yourself depressed with losses. So there's nothing wrong with slowing it down and enjoying other aspects of life. As the weather starts to get better, get outside, get some sun on your skin, go enjoy yourself. All right, I'll leave you with that, which is it's a basic one. If you guys have heard me say that before, but it's a crucial one. All right, and I know what it's like. Obviously, I like to bet on sports, and I know what it's like to get consumed in the game. So be careful, boys. All right, signing out. Teller.